Hello and welcome to another episode of Game Develop Repeat, the podcast where we talk about a game that I enjoy, what makes it special, and what we as game developers can learn from it. I'm your host, Chris, a music educator turned indie game developer, and today's episode is all about Cookie Clicker. In this episode, we discuss hedonistic adaptation, dark humor, efficiency as gameplay, polish, and weird game ideas. Let's get to it. How much would you be willing to sacrifice in the name of baking and selling cookies? That is a question which, if you have ever played Cookie Clicker, you've found out the answer to. And you may have been disturbed by the answer to that question, because what I've found out is that I am willing to sacrifice far too much for the sake of making some delicious cookies. And that's where the charm of Cookie Clicker really comes in for me. The gameplay itself, whatever. It's cool. It's an efficiency game. It's a game all about some efficiency. It's all about building up and snowballing and making more and more and more and more and more. This is an idle game if you're not aware of it. And it's maybe the most famous idle game that I know of. Perhaps there are ones that are more well known. There probably are, but within the community that I kind of interact with, Cookie Clicker is the big one. The thing about this game is, yeah, the gameplay is an idle game. Sure, it's about efficiency. It's fun. It's got a cool, interesting little gameplay loop to it. But what really gets you is this self-awareness that you get when you play this game, where you're like, why though? Why do I care so much? Why do I keep checking this game? Why do I want to make more cookies? Why is this important to me? What is this feeling that I just have to satisfy, that I just have to keep making so many of these cookies, that I have to see what comes next? I have to keep exploring. I have to keep expanding. I have to get this number to go higher. The number must go up. I have to become the friggin' galactic emperor of cookies. That is how much this game escalates when you start playing. You just keep going. You're like, wait, but I can make this number get bigger. How big though? And then after that, how much bigger can I get the number again? It never ends. And that is the thing about this game that scares me, is I think it and I know I'm going a little too deep right off the bat, but bear with me for a second, because we'll talk about all the humor and the polish and the juice and the game design elements and everything else. But first, the scary thing about this game is that you play it and you find out how much it's just never enough. Nothing is ever enough with Cookie Clicker. You're always striving for more, and it just speaks to this mindset that I think people can fall into. I think it's somewhere in all of us, or maybe this is my own personality quirk, but I think everybody has this, where they're like, yeah, but I want more. I want to keep going. How far can I go with this? It's this thing called, I'm going to relate it to hedonistic adaptation. If you've heard that term before, it's this idea that you get something good and you immediately get used to it, and then you want something better. Cookie Clicker is a simulator for that emotion. As you know that I love games that make you realize something about yourself, or that simulate some emotion, or make you connect to some truth that you didn't know about before. This is one of those. And I know I read too much into it, but just roll with me. This is a game that makes you recognize how people lose touch with reality by just getting so obsessed with one goal. This is a game that makes you see this part of you, this little demon inside of you that's like, all I want is this one thing and screw everything else. It's like, how do people get so obsessed with money? Cookie Clicker. cookie clicker is how you get so obsessed with money that you ignore your family or your own child or whatever, right? That's cookie clicker. Cookie clicker is how you just give up on everything else in life for some wild drug addiction or something. I mean, that's an overstatement for sure. But what I'm getting at is there's this essence in this game that's really cool to tap into and really interesting of like, I just want more, I just want more, I just want more. And at the same time, the game is not so addictive in my mind. This is not a game where you play it and you're like, it's going to ruin your life or anything. It's just a really interesting exercise in like, oh, I'm kind of hooked on this in a really weird, interesting way, but it's not like fun in the way that most games are. And then let's talk about how the game is fun, because there are things in this game that are so fun. And let's acknowledge that, because it's easy to just talk about like the wild psychological effect it has on me. Let's talk about the actual game. It has a beautiful sense of humor. I'm not going to spoil all the jokes in it. I think that telling the jokes from a game is a spoiler. It's got this great sense of humor, which is very like, it commits really hard to what it is, and it's a little bit dark while also being kind of playful and goofy. So it's because of the theming of the game, because it's a game about cookies, whenever it starts going dark, you can't get out of the fact that it's a game about cookies, so it still makes you chuckle, right? It's like there's animated shows. I have not watched much of this, but I'm aware of stuff like, what is it, Happy Tree Friends, I think is one of them I've heard of. That's an oldie. I don't think I've seen that. But there's these shows that are like very cutesy art style or very like cheerful, like old school. Maybe Adventure Time is a good reference point for this. There's shows like Adventure Time where it looks like it's a really cute children's show, and then you watch it and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is intense. This is a lot. But it makes it funnier, right? When Adventure Time has some like horrific moment in it that's like really deeply impactful, it's kind of pitched against the fact that it's Adventure Time, that it's this goofy show, and it makes it have a more interesting emotional impact. And Cookie Clicker is funnier and lighter for all of its darkness, all of its dark humor, because of how like cheerful it is. And that's I'm a big fan of that. I'm also a big fan of how deadpan it kind of is about it. It really fully, completely commits to the idea of, hey, what if you had a cookie business and it just started going well? No, but like it just started going really, really well. Like, what if your cookie business became so successful that nobody would ever, like your cookie business is taken off in a way that you could never imagine at all. And they committed to this idea hard, and it's beautiful. And that adds this sense of discovery to the game. Every time that you were getting a new like idle mechanic, right? In idle games, you have this thing where you kind of like hire something to do the job for you, right? Like you click yourself, you click like 100 times, and then you buy a thing that clicks for you. And then once you get like 1,000 times, right, you get enough cookies, then you buy something that clicks even faster, basically, right? Or not technically clicks, but produces cookies even faster. It's got that sort of a mechanic behind it. And every time you're kind of like, yeah, but what's the next thing? Like, okay, you can think about it a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, there's me. And then you can like buy a little cursor thing, and it's like, oh, okay, that does it too. And then that unlocks the next thing, which unlocks the next thing. And every step down the road, you're like, but what's going to be next? How can they go further than this? This is such a weird thing to be creating cookies. What weird thing makes them next? Because it just gets more and more bizarre. And then you get these little headlines within the game that kind of scroll by. I think they actually pop up in a little window. They don't really scroll. They kind of like, it kind of flips through them like a Rolodex. Is that, what is even that word? Rolodex, the thing that people used to keep phone numbers on. This is not relatable. Nobody is even going to care or know what I'm talking about. The point is, it goes through different quotes, newspaper headlines, and things related to your cookie business. And they change as the game progresses, and they kind of get more and more tied into what impact your business is having on everything else going on in the world. That is the scale of this business. The other element of the gameplay that is fun is the efficiency. There is just a joy in finding the most efficient path forward, seeing how quickly you can get to a higher rate of cookie production. And this is also part of what ties into like what I was saying scares me about this game. But it's good. It's good fun in a way where like I do think there is like I know it seems like I'm like reading into it too much. There is some level of like the game is a little bit it's a little too revealing about human nature. Like you play it and you're like, this is a little messed up that this is entertaining. This is a little messed up how much I like seeing this number get bigger and how invested I am in getting the number bigger. And like learning to let go of that is really interesting. Like even thinking about this game, I'm like, I should load up my old save and see how far I can go. But it's like, I'm not going to spend days just making a number go up for no reason other than, oh, big number. Because I've gotten far enough in the game to where it's like, all right, I've gotten what I need to get out of it. Let's talk about the polish and the juice of the game. Juice meaning like, particle effects and satisfying clicking and like cool stuff like that. There's it's just a simple, clean game with cool effects. There are like cookies that rain down from the sky on the little visual element of the game. It's like a menu game, it's like an idle game, but there are some visual effects and stuff. There's milk, and the milk kind of like changes colors, which is nice. There's cool little visual effects. There's things that pop up on the screen. It's satisfying. It's juicy. The menus, the UI, it all feels good. It all feels solid. So that adds to it a lot. If it was just a like plain spreadsheet, it would not be as fun, but it's tickling little bits of my brain and saying, ooh, this is rewarding. This is exciting. You're doing a good job. You're getting cool stuff. And it's cookies too. So I'm like, now I'm kind of hungry. Now I kind of want some cookies. Very effective, very well polished, very clean. The gameplay is pretty tight. It has like just the right pacing where you kind of don't want to leave your computer or let it idle. Like you're kind of like, yeah, but I can keep doing stuff. Like you feel like you can always keep unlocking stuff, even though it's like optimal a lot of the time to step away. And then the game design. This is one thing I really want to talk about. Is this whole concept of this game is so like bizarre, and I am in love with that. This is how I like to design games, or this is how I would like to design games, I should say. I like committing to a strange idea and making it work. There are people out there who say this, you have to have a good idea, right? You see this in like fiction writing, you see this in all these things where it's like, oh, you have to have a good idea, and if you don't have a good idea, then you're not gonna be successful or whatever. There are just some ideas that are so good that they make everything work. I do not buy into that. I think you can take any idea and make it into an amazing, incredible, creative project with fairly wide appeal. I do think there are some limits to the appeal based on the idea. I mean, there's some things where it's like, well, some people just aren't going to be open to it at this point. But generally speaking, you can take a wild idea and make something incredible out of it. And I love that Cookie Clicker does that. They're like, we're just going to push hard on baking cookies as a entire game. That is, and not like in the, oh, we're running a bakery style thing. It's like, no, it's like a capitalism simulator. It's really interesting, creative game design in that you glance at it really quickly and you go, oh yeah, that works. That's cool. Like that's a really interesting idea. That's really cool how that all comes together. That's very funny. Like that's entertaining. But it's just, if you pitched that idea to somebody, I feel like they would chuckle a little bit and be like, yeah, but it would never be like, that's a fun idea to make for yourself and to entertain a couple friends of yours. But I think those are great ideas. And that's one of the things I find so inspiring about Cookie Clicker is like that the execution of this wild idea is so beautiful. And I do think that it is a lesson in execution. It is telling you, hey, just execute whatever your crazy idea is. If you execute really well, then you can make a really good game. I think that's a beautiful part of this game. And I've apparently already started talking about the development lessons from this without realizing it. So let's go ahead and move into that segment. To kind of tie into what I was just saying about any idea being a fun game idea, how you can use any idea that you want and make a good game out of it as long as there's solid execution, as long as it's something you can make relatable, as long as it's beautifully done, beautifully not like visually, but beautifully done in terms of its design, its execution, the amount of the good taste behind the game. Like you play the game and you go, oh, this is nice. Somebody cared about this and really thought about it. The thought behind the game. Maybe that's the right way to put it. Any idea. I think you can pull it off. Now, to tie into that, one of the thoughts that I have as a result of Cookie Clicker is be shameless about your idea. Your idea is cool. Your idea is for somebody. Now, as part of this, I don't think we should chase the money, because I think it becomes a lot harder to be shameless if you're chasing the money. I think, and this is my own philosophy, and it may not be realistic. I acknowledge that fully. But I think that it's very valuable for just the art of making games, for just the enjoyment of it, for just the value of I'm creating stuff that I love and I want it to be out there in the world. I think it's really useful to be shameless about your idea. Pursue it wholeheartedly. Whatever ridiculous, goofy thing it is. And you may show me some idea, right? Literally, you may show me some idea. You can jump into the Discord and chat with me and we can toss things around, right? You could show an idea to somebody and they may not like it. They may be like, wow, I hate that. And like, even me, I might be like, wow, I really don't like that idea. But somebody does. That's the thing. If you're super into it, somebody else out there is super into it. Go into your idea, explore your idea, and you may even find like, you know what? I don't actually like that idea as much as I thought I did. And then you may discover some stuff. You may go, ooh, you know what I do want though? What really interests me about this idea is actually this. And then you're going to move in a direction that is more authentic to what you want to be making. And you'll really connect to like what it is that interests you, what you're passionate about, what is exciting for you. How am I getting to this from Cookie Clicker? We're going to keep going. What you really like creating. That's the most fun part of this process, is discovering what you love creating. This is why I'm so excited about wrapping up development in my game, because I want to finish this game so that I can keep going and keep discovering, because I'm not a platformer guy, but I've loved making this platformer. It has been so exciting. I'm discovering so much about what I enjoy, and I can't wait to find out more about what I enjoy creating. Now that I've tapped into like, oh shoot, I love making games. This is amazing. This is incredible. This is such a great experience for me. It's beautiful. It's fulfilling. It's so cool. Now that I've tapped into all that, I'm like, okay, what's next? And I want to explore that. But I think the only way to really explore that is to follow the things that you really want to do in terms of your game design, to follow the stuff that you're really interested in making, even if other people are like, that doesn't sound good. Like, I don't know, if I told somebody I wanted to make a platformer about a ball of soot jumping around in a fireplace, like they'd probably be like, oh, it's a platformer, I guess you can do whatever you want. But like, that's not particularly inspiring, right? But I was excited about the idea, so I went in on it. It doesn't have to be your friggin' destiny. The idea doesn't have to feel like your magnum opus. It doesn't have to feel like this thing that you have to create. You just need to be excited enough about it to get going and then to keep getting more excited about it as you're going, right? That's it. You have to be excited about the process, I guess. I'm rambling now. Last point I want to make about the development lessons from this game is I think it's important to explore a human experience on some level, right? When I started making Soot, it was supposed to be like there's like a metaphor in my head for what experience Soot is exploring, right? Fair enough. Whatever. We won't go down that road right now. But I do think it's important to have some kind of exploration of or connection to a human experience. For me, that's how I feel about it. Just because it makes the game more relatable, easier to connect to, which is really important to me. Really quickly, we're going to rip through the development stuff that I've been doing this week on my own game. I'm trying to go fast this week because I've got a little bit of a time limit going on in terms of how many minutes of audio I'm allowed to post without having to pay extra for the month. Okay, so I have finally finished drafting 50 levels for my game. That is my goal, 50 levels. My goal was to have 50 drafts by the end of this month. I have just barely accomplished it. Thank goodness. I now need to refine them because, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff where I just want these levels to flow smoother. I want them to be more interesting. I want to make sure every level feels like it has a point, and level design is a much deeper and trickier craft than I initially thought it was. I don't know why I was so cocky about level design. I really underestimated it, but oh my God, it's a good time. It's challenging, it's exhausting, but it's a good time. So I finally got to 50 levels. Hallelujah. Thank goodness. I have started playtesting now a little bit. I am trying to find the flaws in each level, and it is difficult playtesting it and kind of figuring out exactly what is and is not enjoyable or is not clear, I should say. It's hard for me to figure out what doesn't make sense and what does make sense because I've designed it. So I know all this stuff that I don't realize that I know. And I'm trying to make myself pretend that I don't know things, but I don't even know that I know those things. So it makes it a little tricky. So basically, I need playtesters. I'm going to have one of my siblings playtest, but he knows a lot about gaming in general. So like that's already a little rough. And he's already playtested a few times for me. So he knows too much. I'm running out of fresh playtesters. So, hey, if anybody wants to playtest a little bit for me, send me a message. Yeah, join the Discord, send me a message and be like, hey, man, I'll playtest for you. I would love that. I would really appreciate that. I don't know when I'll have another playtest ready, but I can basically throw one together like whenever at this point. So, like, hit me up. Feel free. That would be a huge help, actually. And then the last point is my timeline is starting to feel scary because I still haven't set up a Steam page, and I'm aiming to release in October, end of October. That's what I'm aiming for. Because I just want the project to be done in under a year. I mean, if I go over, I go over. I understand that, but I want my first project to be short, tight, quick, right? So I would like to be done in under a year, and that puts me at end of October. We're getting pretty close to end of October in terms of like game dev timeline. I need to get that Steam page up. I need to finish some sound effects. I need to finish music stuff for sure. I need to fix up some of these levels. I might need to swap in second and the third tile maps, but I might just keep one tile map for the whole game, honestly. Like, I don't know. I kind of don't think that adding more tile maps is worth it unless I have extra time. Maybe that's an extra time project. So yeah, the timeline is starting to become scary, but I think I need a little bit of pressure on me at this point. I think it's time to start being like, okay, how am I going to finish this? How am I going to get there? And I'm glad I did set a timeline for myself. That's all I have to say about my own game development this week. So let's move on to this week's tip and questions. 3 questions for your own projects. 1, does this game reflect my own personality in any way? 2, what parts of the development process excite me the most? And the idea behind that is that it'll kind of guide you in the direction of future projects, right? And then the third one, is there something I want this game to be that I'm avoiding out of fear of judgment? And then the tip for this week is to tackle some fears. And I say these tips because they're really, like, let's be real, they're tips for me, right? It's almost a journal for me. It's kind of a devlog thing. I don't want you to think that I'm speaking from this place of authority. I'm just a dude figuring stuff out, and I don't want to leave anybody under the impression that I think that I am an authority on this subject matter, because I'm not. I'm just sharing my experience, and I just want to make that really clear and state that in case I haven't stated it clearly before. This is just a format that really helps me digest my own experience, and I'm hopeful that it helps other people digest their experiences as well, because stuff like this has helped me in the past, like consuming it from other people. Anyway, there's that disclaimer. That is everything that I have for this week. I will see you next week with another one. If you want to reach out, if you have anything you want to say, if you want to be a tester for my game, I don't know exactly what that's going to entail. I'll try to keep it as light as possible. But if you want to test anything on my game, let me know. Hit me up in the Discord, and I will figure out that process. Additionally, if you like the show, feel free to give it a rating on whatever your podcast platform is. That is everything. I will talk to y'all soon. Until then, have a good week, create some stuff, and have fun with it. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.